Welcome to the European Parliamentary Research Service podcasts.
In this podcast, we'll be talking about critical raw materials and how the EU plans to ensure security of supply and cut unwanted dependencies from third countries to sustain its twin digital and green transitions. Want to know more? Keep listening.
Did you know that your smartphone contains up to 50 different kinds of metals? Or that an electric car requires 6 times the amount of minerals of a conventional car?
Welcome to the age of critical raw materials. Without them, we simply wouldn't have TVs, computers, electric cars, wind turbines, medical scanners, drones, and many other products and applications. And their demand is projected to skyrocket in the coming years.
According to the International Energy Agency, the transition to global climate neutrality will require 6 times more minerals in 2040. And for the EU to become net zero by 2050, a lot more critical raw materials will be necessary too. Let's hear the Vice President of the European Commission, Maros Šefčovič.
Europe will need almost 60 times more lithium and 15 times more cobalt by 2050 for electric cars and energy storage alone. Demand for rare earth used in permanent magnets, critical for products like wind generators, could increase tenfold in the same period.
Yes, the green and digital transitions are very materials intensive, and recent pledges by EU countries to boost defense capabilities mean we'll be needing even more critical raw materials, such as tellurium or vanadium. Yet only a small proportion comes from EU mines. So, where are we going to get them from?
The problem for the European Union is its heavy reliance on imports, often from quasi-monopolistic third country suppliers, and the supply of critical raw materials is often more concentrated than that of fossil fuels.
Just to give you some figures, currently China provides 98% of the EU supply of rare earth elements. Turkey, 98% of the borate. South Africa covers 71% of the EU's needs for platinum, and Brazil, 85% of its niobium, which is used in jet engines.
The tricky issue about supply chains of critical raw materials is that they're global, complex and fragile, which makes them vulnerable to a wide range of risks, including disruptions due to natural disasters, dumping practices, or geopolitical tensions and armed conflicts.
So how could such disruptions affect us? Here's Guillaume Ragueneau from the European Parliamentary Research Service.
Well, in short, without the critical raw materials needed, the EU would not be able to achieve its strategic goals. Supply shortages would jeopardize the EU's industrial transformation. Production lines of key technologies could be blocked, and rising materials prices could affect whole industrial supply chains. The EU would miss the opportunities stemming from the transition to the net zero and digital age in terms of technological development, economic growth, jobs, or climate benefits. And lastly, importantly, shortages would also be a source of military vulnerability for the EU.
So, what is the EU doing about it? Stay with us.
To avoid replacing its dependency over fossil fuels by another on critical raw materials, the EU has reviewed all relevant policies to foster its security of supply, mixing industrial, research and trade policies with international partnerships.
The 2008 Raw Materials Initiative and the 2020 Action Plan on Critical Raw Materials provided the first frameworks to strengthen EU access to such materials. But given their increasingly strategic importance, the growing competition for resources and current geopolitical tensions following Russia's war on Ukraine, in March this year, the Commission took a step further and adopted a proposal for a Critical Raw Materials Act. Valdis Dombrovskis, Executive Vice President of the European Commission, explains the main goal.
Our goal is that by 2030, our capacity should reach at least 10% of domestic demand for mining and extraction, at least 40% for processing and refining, and at least 15% for recycling.
These measures may certainly help address some of the challenges the EU is currently facing, but they are no silver bullet. So what other options are there?
Well, achieving full independence from foreign supply of critical raw materials is an unrealistic goal, and that goes for all countries in the global supply chain. But different measures can be adopted to strengthen the EU's role in this chain, as well as its resilience.
For example, diversifying primary sourcing of critical raw materials so we are less dependent on individual countries, or strengthening supply relations with like-minded countries to create a sort of global club that supports local economic development and sustainable production.
By promoting a fully circular approach to the use of critical raw materials, we would also reduce demand for primary materials and improve resource efficiency at all stages of the supply chain. Let's take lithium-ion electric car batteries as an example. Recycling end-of-life batteries could help meet more than half of the 2040 demand for lithium and cobalt for new battery production.
Boosting research and innovation is also key for the EU's critical raw materials sector to thrive, as well as promoting higher environmental and social standards and ensuring an adequately skilled workforce.
Moreover, a dedicated EU framework central to preventing and addressing potential shortages could be set up together with stakeholders. This framework could help improve supply chain transparency and implement contingency planning, mitigating and emergency measures, including stockpiling, to respond to emergencies and prevent disruptions.
To increase supply, the European Parliament has promoted an integrated approach throughout the entire value chain, from waste collection and product design to material recovery, under a European strategy for critical raw materials. It has also called to increase investment in this sector, notably through a new European Sovereignty Fund.
What's clear is that in the current global context, it's critical for the EU to lessen dependence on China and other countries for raw materials and ensure that supply can keep up with the expected needs.
Want to know more? Check out Guillaume Ragonneau's full policy brief on the EPRS website or in our app.
This is a European Parliamentary Research Service podcast.
Thanks for listening.